want to do is talk to you about 5 ways that you can get faster without getting fitter. Now I know it might sound a little bit funny coming from me, whose job it is to help people get fitter, but really, we have a lot of knowledge that we've gained thanks to BrakeAce. So BrakeAce, what it does is it measures everything about your braking, and it shows you where on the trail you can improve. So for those of you who are like Sherlock Holmes, you might be thinking, well, it's a no-brainer that braking differently can make you faster. But until we started doing this braking research, no one really had ever measured it before. And this is even the top pros on the World Cup. And now that we've had time to look through the data and get BrakeAce to more riders, we have these 5 things that you can work on right now. So the first way to get faster without getting fitter is to coast more. I know what you're thinking. You're thinking that I'm telling you you don't have to get fitter and that you don't even have to pedal? Is that right? Well, yes. I did this research at Massey University during my PhD in 2014. We're trying to understand physiology, vibrations, wheel sizes, heart rate, VO2, all kinds of data. One of the trials that I threw in during one of our tests was this coasting trial, and I kind of randomly threw it in because I always thought that pacing was really important on a mountain bike. So what we did is on this 1 kilometer downhill, we had riders go as fast as they could during a race run, and then another run, they coasted. So we randomized it and did it really scientifically. But what we found at the end of it is that when riders coasted, they didn't go any slower, but they saved a whole lot of energy. Their heart rates were lower, their VO2s were lower, and their time was the same. Now we've all seen Aaron Gwynn's World Cup winning race run where he had no chain. What riders are able to do when they don't pedal is they're able to save more energy and ride more efficiently. This means that they're braking differently, and this is really where the idea for BrakeAce was born. So we've tried this with a few top riders before and amateurs all around the world. So with one rider in particular, we were measuring his braking and his pedaling in an all-out race run versus a smooth, flowy run. Now he was still able to pedal in both of them, but in the smooth, flowy run, he was able to ride faster and brake a lot less, even with a crash. So you can check that video linked up here. So the second way you can get faster without getting fitter is to brake harder. Smart and efficient braking is like free speed. Anytime we're riding, we're carrying energy, and every time we touch the brakes, we take away that energy and it's converted into a little bit of noise and some heat. Now we definitely need to be braking, otherwise we're gonna go out of control. But if we brake harder, we're able to take away that speed that we need to take away more quickly. The BrakeAce app shows you how hard you're braking, and it's called intensity. What we see with beginners is that they brake really lightly for a really long time, but what the pros do is they get all their braking done in a short amount of time. They're out there on the trail finding the traction that they need. So anytime that you're braking, you really risk losing traction with your tires because you're slowing down the speed of your wheels. So if we can minimize the time that we spend braking by braking harder where we have traction, we can ride smoother, faster, and in more control. Now with BrakeAce, you can try this in different sections and see how your braking strategy affects your speed and your performance out on the trail. Now BrakeAce has just one number that takes into account the duration of your braking, your modulation, and the intensity of your braking. This is your flow score, and you can compare this to anyone, anywhere. The flow score is a little bit like penalty points. Every time you brake, your flow score increases. So you can look at a series of turns or a whole trail and compare directly to your friends. So what your faster friends are doing is braking harder than you when they need to slow down. Have you ever tried stopping as fast as possible? Now this is something that we often do to test the traction of the dirt that we're riding and to figure out how quickly we can stop if we really need to. It gives us a lot of confidence out on the trail. The third way to get faster without getting fitter is to brake later. Modern disc brakes are crazy good, and you can stop on a dime if you really need to. Have you ever noticed how when you're riding your home trails, how you ride differently when it's muddy? When the trails are wet, you need to start braking much earlier. But when the trails are dry, you can wait until almost the last minute to start your braking. So when the trails are wet, it's not the wet trails that are to blame for you riding slower. It's the fact that you're braking differently because of the wet trails. What happens when we brake later is that we can travel faster for a longer period of time. We have a published research study where we compared beginners to experts. And what the beginners did differently is they started braking much earlier than the experts. Even though this was a super short 70-meter section of trail where they could only coast and do one turn, the experts were still able to go 1 second faster just by changing their braking zone. So this one's worth experimenting with. Go to your local trails and see how late you can start your braking. If you have to come to a complete stop within the middle of the turn, that's okay. Now do this with control and come to a complete stop. see how you feel. Then, as you gain more confidence, start trying to carry speed through this turn. As you find the limits of your traction, you'll find this perfect braking zone for yourself. The fourth way to get faster without getting fitter is to session your key opportunities. Now what BrakeAce does is it takes every single braking event out on the trail and identifies the 3 places on the trail that you can improve the most. Now what it does is it links different sections up based on your modulation, duration, and intensity of your braking. It says these are the 3 sections of the trail where you have the most wiggle room. So what riders do with BrakeAce, they go out for a run on their favorite trail, and the BrakeAce app identifies 3 key opportunities for them. And what they do is go to these 3 sections of trail and try different braking strategies based on what they can improve the most. On average, riders have saved 7 seconds per 2 minutes of trail. Now that's a huge amount because they didn't have to get fitter and they only did a few runs. Now younger riders spend a lot of time playing on their bikes, but as we get older, we really have limited time to be able to do this. So what BrakeAce does is it helps you identify where you should play the most. So we all want to get faster, but we all have limited time. So BrakeAce cuts through the noise and helps you get faster. So the 5th way to get faster without getting fitter is to brake into the apex. Now I know what everyone says, and they say you want to get all your braking done before you get into the turn. But this just isn't the reality. What you definitely want to be doing is getting off the brakes once you're past the apex of the turn. Now this is the tightest angle of the trail. So what we see in pro riders is that they're braking their hardest at the apex of the trail. So they take braking late to the next level. Even more advanced, what some of the pros are doing is they're braking hardest with their front brake at the apex of the turn. One of the reasons we think this is happening is because when they're braking hard, and especially with the front brake, we're getting maximum traction with the front wheel and we're able to change direction. Now this is a bit of an advanced move, and what I'd prefer to see is riders to corner with absolute control. But what we show you in the BrakeAce app is how you're braking compared to the apex. The app identifies the apex of every turn for you and shows you if you're braking too late. Going fast through a turn is all about exit speed. And if your buddies are dropping you on every single turn and you're blowing yourself up pedaling out of every turn, it's time to think about your cornering strategy. Before BrakeAce existed, you could only get faster with guesswork. And I don't know about you, but I have a limited time to ride, and I most absolutely want to make the most of it. And you do too, and that's why you've listened this long. Power meters have helped roadies make the most out of their fitness, and BrakeAce does the same thing for mountain bikers looking to improve their riding. So head on over to BrakeAce.com and see how you can get a BrakeAce on your bike. So I really hope you enjoyed that. The whole reason I'm doing this is because I want mountain bikers to get faster and have more fun. So if you enjoyed this, share it with your friends. Maybe you don't want your friends to get faster than you, but share it with them anyway and see what they think. So check out our other videos around here about BrakeAce and go out to the trails and have more fun.